The air inside the Dauntless smelled of machine oil and recycled oxygen, both acrid and comforting to Captain Mira Hale. She drifted forward on the observation deck's magnetic rail, her boots making no sound against the steel grating. Beyond, the curved viewport, Luna's pale surface rolled by, dotted with mining colonies and solar farms. At first glance, it looked like any freighter leaving Earth's orbit, but Mira knew that in its battered hull lay the seed of humanity's rebellion. When the Galactic Consortium had bestowed this vessel upon Earth 6 months ago, they'd done so with no small measure of disdain. Ambassador Rivaza had hovered over Earth's envoy like a predatory stork, presenting the ship with a flourish of tentacles and a voice like grinding quartz. "Here is your gift," he had intoned, lingering over the word with thinly veiled disdain. "A vessel. Use it as you see fit, though we expect little. No shield array, no advanced sensors. A jump drive rated to push the ship less than a light year before overheating. Navigation consoles from outdated civilian models, and a hull plating barely thick enough to shrug off micrometeoroids. Earth's engineers named it the Dauntless out of optimism, but nobody expected it to be more than a glorified lifeboat. Yet, here it was, alive. Power output at 68% recirculation, reported engineer Yara Chen from the gutted engine room, her voice crackling over the comm. Life support systems at 90. Jump drive charging sequence initiated. Mira smiled. "Good work, Yara. How are the bypass conduits holding under load?" "Probably due for replacement in another 10 hours of continuous operation," Yara replied, her tone already impatient for the next upgrade. "But I've rerouted auxiliary coils to stabilize the gravimetric flux. We've got margin." Above them, the observation deck lights flickered as main power rerouted through an improvised manifold. Lieutenant Aidan Rogan, Mira's first officer and de facto chief of morale, leaned against the viewport, arms crossed. "Still looks like a brick," he joked, nodding at the ship's battered exterior visible through the thick glass. "You think anyone out there would mistake this for a threat?" Mira's eyes followed his gaze. The hull, once a dull grey, had been patched with plates salvaged from decommissioned cargo pods. Scars of welding arcs ran in jagged lines across its surface, and the consortium's emblem had been painted over in a crude but defiant black brushstroke. "We'll make them think twice," she said. "Tell the crew to report to their stations. We leave lunar orbit in 15 minutes. In the cramped operations bay, the rest of the crew moved like seasoned dancers in a ballet of improvisation. Communications officer Tia Ruiz tuned bulky archaic transceivers to pick up clandestine chatter on the fringe networks. Pilot Soren Cade ran simulations in a holosuite projector, fine-tuning the new reaction control thrusters Yara had grafted onto the aft section. Supply officer Darius Nakamura inventoried the stockpiles. Enough rations, raw materials, and makeshift ordnance to last a month in uncharted space. Here, humanity's finest minds and bravest hearts were united by a single purpose: to prove that even a worthless ship could become something greater. "Captain Hale," called Lieutenant Rogan over the comm, "Consortium traffic just pinged us. They're asking if we're ready for our maiden trial." Mira's lips curled into a grin. "On the contrary, Rogan, we're not theirs to command. Set the course for the asteroid belt beyond Ganymede. We'll see how much trial by fire this old gal can take." Moments later, the Dauntless disengaged its magnetic clamps and drifted free of Lunar Station's docking arm. Throttle valves hissed as the sublight engines roared to life, flinging the ship toward the asteroid ring. Through the viewport, the grey moonscape of Luna receded, replaced by the glittering void, studded with rocky fragments of all sizes. Below deck, Yara hovered over a control terminal, her dark hair illuminated by the soft glow of schematics. She toggled switches, rerouting power through the emergency bus to feed the gravimetric stabilizer. Engines at 80%, she reported. Hull stress tolerance is nominal. I'm feeding feedback loops to the hull plating. Let's see if this baby can stand a hit. In the turret bay, 2 salvaged coil guns, once destined for scrap, charged with a crackle of emerald energy. Mira had insisted on their installation despite consortium regulations. If they won't give us weapons, she'd told Yara, we'll build our own. Rogan tapped her shoulder. Asteroid belt in sight, Captain. All crews standing by. Mira powered up the main comm. All hands, this is your captain. We're about to enter the true unknown. Stick to your stations, trust the ship and trust each other. Let them call it worthless. We'll show them what it truly is. A hush fell across the bay as crew members exchanged determined looks. Then, in unison, they leaned into their consoles, hearts pounding at the promise of discovery and the thrill of defiance. As the Dauntless plunged into the asteroid belt, jagged rocks of basalt and ice spun past in a cosmic whirlwind. Sensors pinged incessantly, and the navigation console sputtered warnings of micrometeor impacts. But the ship held steady, its patched-together systems humming in eerie harmony. Mira stood at the viewport, watching space debris streak by. Nay, that moment, the scrap metal freighter transcended its humble origins. It was no longer a derelict donation, it was a crucible of human ingenuity. Approaching the core cluster, announced Soren. Recommend we test the coil guns on that rogue chunk drifting ahead. Mira nodded. Fire when ready. Below, deck, the turret bays opened, and emerald arcs of energy lanced into the void. The rock shattered in a silent explosion, fragments sparking as they tumbled away. Cheers echoed through the bay, shaking the deck plates. Direct hit, Yara announced, scanning the data. Power feedback within design specs. Mira let the applause wash over her. In that instant, she knew the Dauntless had passed its first trial. The consortium's gift, meant as an insult, had become humanity's slingshot. And as the battered freighter pressed deeper into the unknown, no one aboard doubted they were on the cusp of something extraordinary. The Dauntless cruised through the asteroid belt like a wounded animal turned predator. Captain Mira Hale hovered over the tactical display, her eyes reflecting the chaos of tumbling rocks and sensor blips. The patched-together freighter shuddered. Stray fragments brushed its hull, but each impact only galvanized the crew's resolve. Proximity alert. 30 meters and closing, pilot Soren Cade warned, fingers dancing across the throttle controls. The ship lurched as he fired thrusters in rapid bursts, weaving between a cluster of spinning boulders. Hold her steady, Soren, Mira ordered. We're coming up on the scrap convoy's last known coordinates. If we're lucky, they'll be salvage primes ripe for the taking. Below decks, engineer Yara Chen and her team worked feverishly to keep the engines and improvised weapon systems in sync. Sparks danced across exposed conduits as Yara recalibrated the gravimetric stabilizer to compensate for the ship's unorthodox modifications. Main power at 82%, she reported through the comm. But the feedback coils are overheating. I can reroute more through the auxiliary bus, if you can give me a minute. Do it, Mira replied. We can't outrun a patrol forever, but we can outfight them. For now. Ambush in the void. No sooner had Yara sealed the conduit panel than the alarms blared. Red warning lights bathed the corridors as the Dauntless's sensors lit up with hostile signatures. Multiple contacts, bearing 120. Tactical Officer Lieutenant Aidan Rogan announced. Consortium scavenger drones, and they've brought backup. Through the viewport, 4 angular drones emerged from behind a jagged rock formation, their sensor arrays gleaming. Behind them, a sleek patrol corvette materialized, bristling with plasma cannon ports. Looks like they've come to finish us off, murmured Soren. Or just to steal our haul, countered Mira. Prepare for combat, arm the coil guns and prime the graviton mines. In the turret bay, 2 salvaged coil cannons powered up with a low hum. The barrels glowed faintly emerald as they charged. while technicians armed irregularly shaped graviton devices beneath the cargo holds. Shields, at 40%, reported Yara. We'll need to disable that corvette's targeting before they break through. Mira's jaw clenched. Then let's give them a lesson in improvisation. Dance of Death, the first volley of plasma bolts struck the Dauntless's flank, sending ripples through the steel frame and extinguishing a row of external lights. The ship groaned as scorched metal plates peeled away. Damage, structural breach on port side, Chief Engineer Chen called out. Hull integrity, at 73%. Fire the coil cannons, Mira shouted. Aim for the corvette's sensor array. Aboard the Dauntless, green arcs of electromagnetic energy lanced into space, weaving between debris and striking the corvette's dorsal module. Sparks blossomed across the alien vessel's surface, enough to blind their sensors and send the ship staggering off course. Sensor suite offline, confirmed Rogan. They're blind. Good, said Mira. Now they can't see our next move. Soren grinned, fingers flying. Engaging evasive maneuvers, let's lead them into the minefield. Turning the tide as the Dauntless twisted and darted through the asteroid labyrinth. The corvette gave chase, its plasma turrets firing indiscriminately. Each salvo chipped away at the patched hull, but the larger rocks and human ingenuity provided cover. Dropping mines at our 6 o'clock, Soren announced. 3 ready to deploy, Mira's heart pounded. Release them on my mark, now! 3 graviton mines jettisoned from the cargo bay, slipping into the void. Moments later, the corvette barreled into them, each detonation sending shockwaves that ripped through its outer plating. The ambushed drones, caught in the blast radius, spiraled out of control and ignited in silent pyres. Corvette drifting off course, power core unstable, reported Rogan. We've got maybe 30 seconds before it blows. Yara's voice crackled over the ship-wide comm. Hull breach contained, but we've lost external lighting. Noted, Mira replied. All hands, brace for the Nova, and when it happens, remember, we're more than scrap. Victories. Aftermath, a brilliant flare blossomed as the corvette's fusion core ruptured, illuminating the asteroid belt in a deadly white bloom. The shockwave rippled through space, rattling the Dauntless and sending smaller debris spiraling outward. Status, Mira demanded. Shields degraded to 30%, Yara answered. Hull integrity at 65. Weapons systems nominal. The deck plates trembled beneath the cheers of the crew. In the aftermath, the battered freighter floated amid a field of shattered rock and burnt-out husk, evidence of humanity's first true victory in the void. Mira exhaled, voice soft but resolute. We survived. Let them write it down. Rogan smirked. They'll write it down, all right, but by the time they finish, we'll be long gone. Mira's gaze shifted back to the endless black. Set course for the Krolan expanse. There's more out there and more trials to conquer. As the Dauntless powered its jump drive, the crew gathered for a moment of shared triumph. In the face of overwhelming odds, they had taken a vessel deemed worthless and wielded it as a weapon of hope and defiance. And as the stars blurred around them, each knew that this was only the beginning of their legend. A ripple of static danced across the comm hollow as Captain Mira Hale surveyed the assembled consortium dignitaries on Valoria Prime. In the grand hall of polished obsidian and glowing crystal pylons, Councillor Hylin's iris-like gaze bore into Earth's envoy, Ambassador Suresh Patel, while Subcommander Taral, head of the consortium's enforcement fleet, fumed at the screens overhead. Projected above them hovered live feeds, shards of the shattered corvette drifting through the Krolan expanse, black market brokers debating the Dauntless's specifications, and frightened merchant captains rerouting convoys to avoid its ghostly signature. Every feed reinforced a single truth. Humanity's worthless freighter had become the galaxy's most feared superweapon. Councillor Hyland's voice crackled through the chamber. "Ambassador, you must rein in your captain. This renegade vessel undermines every treaty we've signed." Patel inclined his head, composed. "Myra Hale and her crew are sovereign citizens of Earth's colonies. They answer to the people of Terra, not the consortium's whims." A murmur rose in the hall, and Terral's tone sharpened. "Then we have no choice but to seize the Dauntless by force, bolster the dreadnought fleet, and dispatch Admiral Quess with full authorization to neutralize the threat." The summits. Fracture outside the Grand Hall. Valoria Prime's twin moons cast long shadows over the parched spires of the capital city. The consortium's fleet assembled in orbit. 7 dreadnoughts bristling with plasma cannons, ion lances, and missile barrages. Admiral Quess paced the command deck of the flagship Vigilant Vigil, her frustration palpable. "We send every capital ship we have," she barked, "and still that freighter slips through our nets like a wraith." Her tactical officer tapped at a holomap. "They've registered 4 exit jumps in the past week, none longer than 1.2 light years. Their signature is minimal. They cloak gaps in asteroids or radiation fields." Quess's jaw clenched. "Then we'll draw them into open space. Broadcast a false distress beacon, something human, something they can't ignore. Once they respond, we spring the trap." The officer nodded, fingers dancing across the console. A subtle distortion rippled the fleet's comm channels, crafting the perfect lure. A mining colony under pirate siege, weak life support, urgent medical evac. The trap far. On the rim of explored space, the Dauntless drifted through the silent expanse beyond the Theta Piscium Nebula. The crew, battle-hardened but restless, took shifts on watch, eyes flicking between sensor readouts and the swirling violet gas. "Unidentified distress call," Communications Officer Tia Ruiz reported. "Colony 47207. Standard human. Medical transponder." Mira's lips curved. "Could be pirates, could be trauma. Either way, we're not leaving survivors." She turned to Rogan. "Plot intercept course. Let's give them hope." Below decks, Yara Chen's tools clinked quietly as she recalibrated the coil gun capacitors. "We'll be ready for anything," she said without looking up. As the Dauntless bore down on the distress signal's origin, Soren Cade aligned the ship's heading with practiced ease. 3 minutes to drop out of cloak. Mira tapped the side of her mouthpiece. "Everyone to battle stations. Let's keep this clean. Medical supplies first, then we can—" Her words hung as the nebula's violet mists parted to reveal the gleaming bulk of the Vigilant Vigil and her escorts, engines locked on human transponder frequencies. "Ambush!" Rogan shouted. In an instant, the consortium dreadnoughts launched volleys of ion pulses. The Dauntless shuddered as hull plates sparked under the onslaught. "Shields at 20%, Yara called. "We can't take much more. Divert." "All power to engines," Mira ordered. "Engage evasive maneuvers toward that asteroid cluster." Showdown among the rocks. The Dauntless careened into a labyrinth of towering space ice spires. Plasma bolts from the dreads cut through, trailing. Vapor, cracking ice like thunder. Soren pulled tight barrel rolls around the crystalline pinnacles, while Rogan detected firing arcs. "At 30 degrees port," he warned. "They've bracketed us." Mira's gaze sharpened. "Time for Plan B." She keyed her comm. "All units, initiate Phase Dark Star." In the cargo hold, graviton mines pulsed with eerie light. Yara triggered the release sequence. Pods jettisoned quietly, tumbling into the ice field. "Now," Mira said. 2 emerald arcs lanced from the hull's hidden coil guns, cutting through target locks on the nearest dreadnought. Its shields flickered, then failed. The drifting graviton mines gravitated toward the capital ship's mass, detonating in silent implosions that warped space-time itself. The Vigilant Vigil cracked like a frozen star, collapsing inward as its reactor imploded. "For Earth!" Mira roared. A new balance. The remaining dreadnoughts surged to aid their flagship, but the Dauntless slipped the net, Cloaking all non-essential systems, Mira guided her ship through a shimmering eddy, one born of the destroyed capital's graviton cascade. Moments later, the freighter emerged in empty space beyond the nebula. The crew exhaled as one, battered, but unbroken. Mira surveyed the aftermath on her console. One dreadnought disabled, two crippled, the rest in full retreat. The consortium's iron fist had been bruised, no longer unassailable. "We did it," Rogan whispered. Mira nodded, voice firm. "They thought a worthless ship would be forgotten. Instead, we've forged a legend." She tapped the comm. "Ambassador Patel, send word. The Dauntless remains sovereign. Let them know that humanity will no longer beg for scraps, nor accept chains." Epilogue. Dawn of the Phoenix. Fleet news of the Dauntless's final gambit spread like solar wind through the consortium's territories. Colonists on distant worlds rallied, repurposing derelicts and decommissioned transports into a clandestine armada, the nascent Phoenix Fleet. Earth scientists reverse-engineered salvaged graviton tech, soldiers trained in guerrilla tactics. Among the stars, and on a hidden moon orbiting a gas giant uncharted by consortium maps, the Dauntless made port. Its hull bore fresh scars, and its hull plating shone with hastily applied but resolute new markings, the emblem of a rising power. Captain Mira Hale stood at the airlock, looking past the assembled crew to the planet's violet skies. In her hand, she held a hastily scrawled scrap of consortium steel, Thavaza's original gift plate, now engraved with a single word. Unbroken, she smiled. "Plot course for the Andromeda Corridor. It's time we show the galaxy what humans can do." The jump drive hummed, the Phoenix Fleet stirred, and humanity stepped into legend.